Yesterday, in undertaking a little workshop, we completed our exploration into the place it said we arrive at when we no longer need to try. And with it brought the possibility of recognizing something solid that's only to be known and experienced in the here and now. And in so doing, it could be said that we answered that statement, you have to know who you are and you have to know what you do. But we still leave unanswered the doing, without trying. So how do we lead in to that exploration? Someone asked the other day, well, what comes next now? And before given an answer, they said, what is it to be human? And so we could ask ourselves, what is knowing what we do, to do with knowing what it is to be human? But let's see what this story evokes in us as it leads us into the next link of our chain, or our next exploration. And it's the story about a farmer. He wasn't just an ordinary farmer. He was a farmer of herbs. He was probably French, because we know the French love and understand and know herbs very well. So we can say he was a French herb farmer. And for all his life he tended his herb garden, going to the market with these fragrant aromatics to put in people's food. But he had 3 sons, and his sons helped him to tend his herb garden. But he was coming to the end of his life, so he gathered his sons together and gave them the task of continuing to take care of the herb garden. And so each of them promised that they would follow his heritage and do what he asked. So he passed on a happy man. And indeed his 3 sons did diligently take care and nurture the herb garden. But there came a time when a strange being appeared to each of the sons. It happened to be Elijah the prophet. As we know, coming to mankind when they're in a moment of transition or crisis or ripeness, one could say. So the prophet confronted the first son and said, "You've been a diligent son. I'm going to offer you a boon. What would you choose? Would you choose wealth, knowledge, or a good wife?" Now the first son, without any hesitation, said, "I choose wealth." So Elijah the prophet gave him a small purse in which there was 1 coin, but it was found by the son that that coin was always replenished when one was taken from the purse. So he became a very, very rich man. The second son was asked the same question. Would you choose wealth, knowledge, or a good wife? And the second son chose knowledge. So he was given a book, and whatever question relative to life and knowledge as we know it was revealed to him. But this knowledge, knowing that he could open the book and get the answers, made him also a rich man. But then it came to the third son, and Elijah the prophet asked the third son what he would choose. And the third son, without hesitation, said, I choose a good wife. So Elijah the prophet said to the third son, well, come with me. And so they went traveling, and they stayed at an inn. And while they were at that inn, both Elijah the prophet and the third son found that they were able to understand the language of the animals and the birds. And they heard the mice in the inn speaking, and the conversation between the mice was, oh, this patron has a daughter, but she's cruel and rebellious and disrespectful. So immediately it was known that this was not the wife that would be chosen for this son. So they moved on, and they came to another inn where they stayed. And there they heard the birds speaking. And the birds were speaking, lauding the wonderful attributes of the daughter of the owner of the inn. So, taking the usual steps that were there, it seemed that this was the maiden to become the bride of the third son. Now, the third son and his wife continued to tend the herb garden, living a simple life. The first son became inordinately wealthy, as did the second son. But then it came a moment when Elijah the prophet came down, and taking the disguise as a wandering beggar, he went to the palatial house of the first son. But the son sent him away. Get out of here. We don't deal with beggars here. But before leaving, Elijah the prophet resumed his natural state. So it was immediately seen by the first son what it was that was being shown to him, because Elijah the prophet said, you have abused the wealth that has been given to you, so it is taken back. Of course, the purse and the gold was no longer. So the second son, again, Elijah the prophet, taking on the garb of a poor student, came to the door of the rich house of the second son and said, I have no money, I'm poor, but I seek knowledge. But the second son said, I do not take the poor to give knowledge to. Be gone with you. But again, Elijah the prophet resumed his state to reveal to the second son, who immediately recognized what it was that was being shown to him. And Elijah the prophet again took back the book that had been given to the second son, giving him the knowledge of the ways of life. But then Elijah the prophet went to the simple home of the third son, again in the disguise of a wandering beggar. When he came to the door, and the door was opened by the third son, Elijah, in his disguise, said, I wonder, I'm looking for a place for the night, it's cold, and could I just sleep in your barn? But the third son looked at him and said, no, come with me, you're obviously tired and hungry. And he led him into the house where his wife was waiting, and she immediately brought warm towels, a bowl of soup, and sat the disguised Elijah in front of the warm stove. So again, of course, Elijah the prophet revealed himself to the third son and his wife, who lived simply, but offering all that they had to bring him comfort and ease. And so Elijah the prophet said to the third son, the gifts that were given to your brothers have been taken back, but they are now given to you. And so the third son found himself with, well, knowledge. And so we leave the rest of this story to unfold as we perhaps endeavor to understand, because there is a saying by the great Hafiz, I am not a Muslim, I am not a Christian, I am not a Buddhist, I am not a spirit, I am not a soul, I am human. What does this mean for us? And how does it relate to answering the second part of our statement, knowing what